W. Bush appointee found that the dominant purpose of the subpoenas was to coerce Minnesota officials into assisting the federal government with enforcing civil immigration law and to harass and retaliate against them for failing to do so. Kentucky Attorney General Russell Coleman is suing gambling companies and prediction markets. More from Caleb Castile.
The state of Kentucky joins the 16 other states that have filed lawsuits against many prediction markets based on operating illegal gambling operations and failing to offer proper resources to combat gambling addiction. The lawsuits filed in Franklin Circuit Court were against Kalshi, Polymarket, and VGW. Kalshi and Polymarket are prediction market platforms which allegedly allow users to bypass the consumer protections and tax requirements mandated by state law. Dr. John Kent, professor of business and legal policy at the University of Illinois, says that these markets allow for so much more than just sports betting.
They're going into all other types of venues, and these other venues include the stock market, anywhere there's money to be made.
He spoke on Washington Watch on how far the topics of possible bets span, saying that Polymarket had bettors who made $400,000 betting on the capture of Maduro in Venezuela. Even though the Commodity Futures Trading Commission says that these markets are regulated, Dr. Kent says that they are not.
It's really disturbing that the Commodity Futures Trading Commission would not just be permitting this, but promoting it and enabling it, and even suing those states which are trying to restrict it.
However, voters recently have shown that they are not pro-gambling. In Georgia, President Trump's endorsed gubernatorial candidate Burt Jones lost in a huge upset to Rick Jackson. Jackson came out early in the campaign running on an anti-gambling platform. This may be interpreted as a sign that Americans are tired of the gambling companies taking money out of the pockets of the people. I'm Caleb Castile.
KERA News reports the Texas State Board of Education is to vote this week on new curriculum emphasizing Texas and Christian themes. Critics say the new social studies lessons and reading lists overemphasize Christianity. The proposed curriculum would teach third graders about Moses' contributions as a lawgiver through the Ten Commandments and how Christian beliefs helped shape American ideas about equality, rights, and treating people with dignity. Lawmakers in India have walked back a 2019 transgender law. Previously, an individual could obtain legal recognition as transgender or by just asserting their status as a transgender. Dr. David Clausen, director of the Center for Biblical Worldview at FRC, made these comments on Washington Watch.
And so now what's happened is a new law has been put forward by lawmakers. I believe it's been signed by the president that if someone wants to identify as transgender, they have to go through a medical review and a government certification now.
He said India's lawmakers have realized that self-identifying as a so-called transgender isn't enough for legal recognition.
80% of the nation is Hindu. Christians make up literally is just under 2%. And so, yeah, you totally can't say that this is a result of right-wing activism or Christian nationalism. The church is very small over in India. I think what this tells us, though, is that the created order has a way of reasserting itself. Right. You look at the claims of gender identity, which again is just by asserting one's transgender status, you're then recognized as someone who's transgender who receives the benefits of this minority status.
In weather news, the National Weather Service says the greatest risk for flash flooding runs from parts of Texas all the way into the Mid-Atlantic region. That's all our time for now. Find more news at afn.net.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mama for Dr. Jessica Peck. Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey there, friends, and welcome to Getting to Spend Time with You, prescribing hope for healthy families. And I have a convicting but encouraging word for you today from my guest, who is going to talk to you about something that every family struggles with. We live in a culture, I'm going to tell you something you already know. We live in a culture that celebrates exhaustion. Busyness is a badge of honor. When we look at our calendars, our schedules, the notifications that are constantly going off, families are running today at a pace that previous generations never imagined. Humans were not designed to live at the speed of a smartphone, and yet that's exactly what we're trying to do, live in a world that is on 24/7. And yet, even in the church, leaders, parents, grandparents, even our kids, we just feel overwhelmed, burned out, and exhausted. And we intuitively kind of know why, and yet we seem stuck in this inertia, like we just can't make a difference. Now, recent research shows that more than half of pastors say their role is often overwhelming. I believe that that is probably true for all pastors. It is tough. It is very tough. And time and rest are some of their greatest challenges. And here's the deeper question for all of us, not just pastors. If spiritual leaders are struggling to rest, and this is what they're trained to do, it's what their job is, what does that mean for everyday families? So today we're reframing a powerful idea. What if Sabbath isn't just a church practice? It's a family lifeline. Because whether you lead a congregation or you lead your household and you are discipling children who are under your care, you are discipling someone. And the way you rest or don't rest really teaches your family what you believe about God. So we're going to talk about shifting from survival to a rhythm of rest, from exhaustion to trusting God to take care of things, and from activity, just being busy, to being intentionally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally present with your family. How do we rest and lead well starting at home? Well, I have no one better to talk about this than Dr. Mark Dance. He is the executive director of the Arkansas Baptist Convention. He pastored and planted churches for 30 years before leading pastoral ministries at Guidestone and Lifeway. And he has earned a lot of degrees, and he has written this book called Rest Well, Lead Well: Why Sabbath Matters to Your Ministry. I have it right here. And let me just say before we dive in, if you have a pastor who is just amazing, you think he is leading well, he is loving our people well, he is doing such a great job, would you do me a favor and would you just reach out and tell him that today? Send him a card, send him an email, send him a text message. Let him know that you appreciate what they're doing. That is so important. Mark, so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
You. Honored to be here. I appreciate the
Mark,
invitation.
Absolutely. Well, I would love for you just to introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell them a little bit about you, how you came to know the Lord, and how you came to be sitting with us today with this message. It's a very timely, important message about Sabbath.
Well, I grew up in a church in East Texas, Tyler, Texas, and I am a deacon's kid, son and grandson of deacons. I married a pastor's kid, and so I switched teams, and I've been pastoring churches for 30 years, and then after that, been pastoring pastors for the last dozen years, currently in Arkansas, but came to know the Lord here in Arkansas when I was 15 at a camp. And so I was born in Dallas, but I was born again in Arkansas. And so, we have two kids. Janet and I have two kids, one in Tulsa and one in Waco.
That I love that you came to know the Lord at camp. I have a special affection for camp. I served as a camp nurse for many, many, many summers. And I think there's just something really special about being able to have a dedicated time away, and even today, from technology. So to all the parents out there who are thinking about sending your kids to camp, of course, do your homework, vet it, make sure it's theologically sound and that it's a safe, thriving, nurturing place for your kids. But send your kids to camp if you can. I think it's such a great experience. But, you know, Mark, in ministry today, there's just this kind of quiet assumption, I think, that if you're faithful, then you're going to be tired. And we've kind of normalized, like it used to be, we would say, how are you? And you'd say, I'm fine. How are you? I feel like everybody today says, how are you? I'm tired. How are you? I'm tired. Yeah. And it's just, it just makes my heart just kind of sad. And that belief hasn't stayed in churches. It's everywhere that we see. And let's talk about some leaders first, though, because leaders in the church, leaders in the ministry, they believe exhaustion just comes with the territory. That's just that mindset. Can you talk about that, and then talk about how that shows up in everyday family life?
You hit the nail on the head. This is a badge. A business is a badge of honor. You said in the intro, and I can't say it better. And you're right. It's not just ministers. It is a badge of honor culturally. We kind of gain our significance from it, and yet that's not the norm in God's word. That's not what God modeled for us in Genesis. Commanded us to do in Exodus and Leviticus, and Jesus modeled in the Gospels. I mean, we are a go culture. So kudos to all the driven ministry leaders and parents. God's designed you to be driven, but there's another big word besides go in the Bible, and it's called stop. And that's what Sabbath means. It means stop. So they're both, neither are negotiable. They're both good. Work is good. Rest is good. They don't compete with each other. But if you do one and exclude the other, your life is not going to experience the fulfillment that God planned for you.
You know, Mark, one of the things that I've seen is that there's a real blurred boundary, and you see this in ministry especially. It used to be, you know, work was at the church and or work was at work, but now families, ministry or not, just bring that home with them. We have this always on, always accessible culture, and it's really hard to just have those distinct boundaries where this is my rest time, this is my work time, this is my home time, this is my family time. Everything just seems kind of thrown in the pot together. And I think that's really hard when we're trying to rest, because now what's also normal culturally is to feel guilty if you're resting. Like parents this summer, they're going to feel guilty if their kids are doing nothing. They're going to feel guilty if they haven't overscheduled every moment. How did that become so normal? And how do we push against that with a biblical worldview?
Well, I'm not sure how it became normal, to be honest with you. There was a bit of a panic during the pandemic about people who were afraid of losing their jobs. That kind of actually started after the real estate recession, led to the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. People thought, if I take the foot off the gas pedal, I'll lose my job. Somebody's going to outwork me. And pastors and missionaries and ministers kind of feel the same way, that, you know, we need to, as I would hear growing up, I'd rather rust out than burn out. Like those were the only two options out there. And I don't think you have to choose between. Yeah. And really the work from anywhere is a great option, and keep good help if we don't have some of these options. But the work from anywhere mindset can turn easily into a work from anywhere, anytime, because we can work anywhere, anytime. And so stopping is not as simple as just having a 24-hour cease and desist on the weekend, although it does include a weekly day of rest. We have to figure this Sabbath thing out every day. I mean, because we not only can work too many days, we can work too many hours, we can sleep too little. And somewhere along the way, for a minister, a Christian, a serious Christian, they can easily confuse denying ourselves with neglecting ourselves. And they're very different in Scripture. Denying
I want to hear more
good.
about that. Yeah. Tell us more about that, because I think, you contrast this really interestingly, because you're denying yourself, a sacrifice. That's good. Men are called to deny themselves, to lead their families. Every Christian is called to deny themselves, pick up their cross, but also the self-neglect. Like that's not good. So tell us more about this from the lens of Scripture.
Well, if you have a an authority figure in your life that tells you something over and over again, you're going to listen up. It starts with your parents. In my home, it was a double clap. Some might be a double snap.
I love it.
Or saying your full name, right? So
Oh, yeah.
Paul tells Timothy as his father in the faith, in this mentoring relationship, 2 times he tells him to pay attention. And first time is in Acts 20:28. He's telling Timothy and the other elders from Ephesus, he says, pay attention to your life and to your teaching. Persevere in these things. For in doing this, you save not only yourself, but also your hearers. So he's at the context there is that he starts the conversation, I'll never see you again. I'm finishing the race God's given me. And so they all start crying, and that gets awkward. Then they start hugging, and at the end, he gets on the ship and they kiss, and it's just one big, awkward moment. But he says, okay, I'm going to finish the race God gave me, but I want you to pay attention. Pay attention first to your life and to your teaching, or your translation may say doctrine. And then he writes him a couple of letters, 1st and 2nd Timothy. And he tells him, again, pay attention. Actually, in Acts, it says, pay attention to your life and your flock. And then in 1 Timothy, he says, pay attention to your life and your teaching. And in most of the schools, our colleges, seminaries, and so forth will teach us to pay attention to our teaching and to our flock, but not so much to pay attention to our life, which he puts there first on purpose. Because if the enemy can get our lives upside down, it's not that hard to get the church upside down. And so pay attention to your life, he says, persevere in this, not only for yourself, but in 1 Timothy 4:16, he says, not only for yourself, but also for your hearers. The collateral blessing of you practicing soul care, practicing self-care, and soul and self, this is the same word. And that helps other people. And so that's why I wrote the book. That's why I encourage pastors to practice self-care. But obviously, self-care can become selfish if you obsess over yourself, right? And so you don't want to go to that extreme of just obsessing over yourself. And yet you don't want to go to the other extreme of neglecting yourself, because that's poor stewardship of your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, relational health. And that's where a lot of pastors go wrong is they stop paying attention to the things God says pay attention to, their life.
That's a really great reframe, is thinking about stewarding it, because we do have our lives to steward. And it seems there's a balance to everything, because self-care can become toxic if you are, pursuing that above all other things and not looking at that in a biblical worldview. But self-neglect can be sinful, and not taking care of the body, the life, the relationships that God has given us. And I really see this happening a lot for families, Mark, especially just feeling this guilt if we're not overscheduling every single moment to try to get ahead, to try to make sure our kids have, the best experiences. And a lot of it is well-intentioned, but we do have this burnout that's there. And when we come back, we're at our first break here, Mark, but when we come back, I want to talk about how culture rewards exhaustion. I think this will make us feel a little bit better to know that, hey, the world, we're up against it. It's not just us. We have external forces at work, but God has given us the power. He's told us we are overcomers, and I am convinced that we can overcome. And so if exhaustion is not the goal, which clearly I think no one would agree that it is, we'll explore some countercultural perspectives. What if rest isn't quitting, it's leading? That would be exciting. The book is called Rest Well, Lead Well: Why Sabbath Matters to Your Ministry. We'll be right back with Dr. Mark Dance.
The crucial midterm elections are coming. AFA Action, the Government Affairs Division of American Family Association, needs your opinion on the role of Christian voters. You can do this by taking the Christian Voters in 2026 survey on the AFA Action website at afaaction.net. That's afaaction.net. In November, America will choose between continuing to return government to biblical values or turning away from these values. We could even lose the U.S. Supreme Court. We could see Trump administration officials impeached by a left-wing Congress. We could see doors for righteous government continue to open, or they could quickly close. As we approach this election, we want to know your opinion. So please take the Christian Voters in 2026 survey at afaaction.net. You will also have an opportunity to make a gift to advance AFA Action's mission of equipping Christians to make a difference. Go to afaaction.net. That's afaaction.net.
Hello, this is Ed Vitagliano, co-host of today's issues, heard right here on AFR. All right, I'll drop the Boston accent. I wanted to invite you to join Wesley and Walker Wildman and yours truly on a tour of my hometown of Boston. We'll be seeing all the historic sites in and around Boston, and September is a great time weather-wise. For all the information about the Boston tour, go to tours.afa.net, and I hope to see you there.
Jesus told us to go into all the world and make disciples. American Family Radio is following that Great Commission everywhere our network reaches. You can help by becoming a Great Commission partner. Not only will you be helping to fund our efforts, but you'll also gain access to everything published on stream.afa.net. There you'll find educational materials, documentaries, and video versions of AFR programs. Learn more and become a Great Commission partner at stream.afa.net.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you're a pastor's wife, you know both the blessings and the unique challenges that come with the life you and your husband live daily. We call it living in the fishbowl.
Details have been announced for the 2026 Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. Once again, this year's retreat will be at Pickwick Landing State Park in Counce, Tennessee. From October 20th through the 22nd, pastors and their wives will enjoy rest, renewal, and fellowship hosted by Pastor Bert Harper, Director of Marriage, Family, and Pastoral Ministries at AFA and co-host of Exploring the Word on AFR, and his wife, Jan. Our special speaker will be J.J. Jasper of AFR. Your registration fee covers lodging, meals, and materials. All you need to do is get there. The annual AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat, October 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at repairingthefoundations.net.
We'd love to see you there.
So many people trying to fill a void inside, so many questions, asking how, asking why. I might not have all the answers, but I've tasted and I've seen there's a better path with Jesus. There's no going back for me. I'm gonna live the way he says to live, do what he says to do. You can choose whatever road you choose, but I'm gonna love the way he says to love, trust the way he says to trust. This world alone will never be enough, so I'm gonna walk with Jesus. I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna walk with Jesus. I'm gonna walk with Jesus.
Welcome back, friends. That is Walk with Jesus by Consumed by Fire. And that's what we're talking about today, walking with Jesus. And part of that is our instruction to honor the Sabbath, to have Sabbath rest in our lives. And I'm talking today to Dr. Mark Dance, the Executive Director of the Arkansas Baptist Convention. He is author of a new book called Rest Well, Lead Well, Why Sabbath Matters to Your Ministry. And this is so important. We are seeing such burnout everywhere in ministry, in families, and we're going to look at a different way. But before we do that, Mark, I said before the break, we talk about the ways that culture rewards exhaustion. Sometimes I think it can be a little gratifying to think that, okay, there are forces at work against us. Honestly, primarily, those are marketing forces in the attention economy that want to keep our attention 24/7 for greater potential for being consumers, being able to sell advertisements, sell products. There are forces at work against us that are rewarding our exhaustion. And it's become kind of culturally just normal for everybody to walk around and say, I'm tired. What do you see as some of those forces that are at work against us, and how can we resist them?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, applause is addicting. You know, everybody
True.
likes it. You know, I mean, I like it when
Yeah.
people are happy, and so it's one of the life's dopamine hits. When you say yes to somebody, it makes them happy, it makes you happy, and then you add up all those yeses, and then you have another kind of hit, which is what we're trying
Yeah.
to avoid on this show today, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
exhaustion that can lead to burnout, which can lead to other things. And so, in terms of outside voices, these aren't voices that are trying to blow up your life or ministry. I mean, there might be some, and yet these are people who are not responsible for managing your life and your calendar. If I understand scripture right, that's my job. There's no one else to blame.
Yeah.
The devil's doing his part, world, the flesh, the devil, all that. But honestly, I like applause, and I like to make people happy. And so sometimes I'm not practicing discipleship by saying yes to everybody. Actually, can disciple people better by saying no or wait to them, which is um, not their favorite thing to hear. Nobody likes to hear that. But they're also everyone I talk to is I realize is trying to use and steward their limited time and energy wisely and lead their family and lead their lives. And so if I can in some way help them figure out maybe by example, disciple them and show them that you don't have to strive and limp through life, that you don't have to please everybody, but that you can steward that limited time with in a way that does glorify God and does build up the kingdom, but also helps you finish the race that God's set you out on.
What do you think are the early warning signs that you're just running at an unsustainable pace? Because I think we have also normalized turning off our early warning systems because we just run at a baseline of just feeling exhausted and kind of low level burned out. And what I see often happen, Mark, is that people don't realize it until a point of crisis. They have a mental health crisis, a relationship crisis, a financial crisis because of, something that fell through the cracks or whatever it is. What do you think that we should look for as early warning signs that, hey, we are really in need of some rest?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, you could answer this. I'd like your opinion on it as well. If I could turn the table, I'm not going to
Sure.
avoid it. But
All's
the
fair.
fact is, well, I'm just saying, out of the gate, Jesus said the most important scripture when he was asked the most important scripture. He quoted the Shema, and everybody in the room knew it. The guy that asked the question knew it. They in fact quoted it every morning, every night, as did their parents and grandparents. Um, but it pretty much wraps up the holistic view of how God created us, a heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so you're looking for cues about burnout and exhaustion, just look there. Is it, I don't, Western thinking compartmentalizes everything. It's hard to compartmentalize a comprehensive covenant like that. And so if Jesus and Moses are right, and we believe they are, then the most important thing I can do today is love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. So when in any of those areas things start to deplete, which by the way, the second commandment's about the relationships, and so that depletion also can be there. But for example, if I'm not sleeping well, what's that got to do with your soul? Well, a lot. I mean, because
Yeah.
you're not sleeping well, you're not thinking well, right? Now you
Yeah.
know why. Most of us don't, but they're connected, right?
That's
And if
right.
your mood's going sour, if your fuse is getting, if you're gaining weight or losing weight, and you can't explain why, you're not thinking straight, then don't try to just go to the people who've been to more classes than you have, that have degrees, and I tell this to pastors all the time. You don't have to be proficient in everyone else's profession. Listen to your doctor. listen to healthcare professionals and listen to believers who are mental health professionals. Listen to financial advisors, who know more about how help you with manage money. I've received help as a disciple maker. My lane is not just to pour into people, but also to allow them to pour back into me, which is the beautiful picture of the interdependent body of Christ, right? Is that no one's an expert at everything, no one's gifted in everything, but when I start to avoid people, when I start to not sleep well, eat well, my relationships begin to experience erosion, then I need to take a breath and stop and ask God to maybe do a self audit on it. Help me audit where I am. Because a lot of times when I experience that exhaustion, which, as you said, more than half pastors say they listen. To Barna and Lifeway Research rarely agree. Their research rarely lines up, but on this one area of two separate research projects they did, 6 out of 10 pastors in both research projects said that they experience that they're overwhelmed frequently. Which means that 4 out of 10 pastors are lying about it. That's what that means.
I was thinking that. I wasn't going to say it, but I'll let you call it out for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
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 I think parents will be
more
the
than
same.
10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly
right.
Parents would be the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. So really, those are some of the things. But here's what we all have in common. If we could take the king of one-liners here, which I think is John the Baptist, he's got the best one-liners of by Mr. Bumper Sticker, right? But the one thing he said the most often, at least recorded in Scripture, that we need to all hear today is, "I am not the Christ." If you don't believe that, then you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to rest well. You're not going to let yourself rest well because you think that all your family's problems depend on you to solve them, that you are the hero of your church or your ministry. And if you don't show up, if you're not there, if you don't call them back immediately or text them back, then their life's going to fall apart, as if you are in charge of everything. And you're not. And you're not created to be. You're not the hero of your family or your ministry, nor did God intend for you to be. And so not only resting is important, but cease striving is also what Sabbath means. And it really does come down to whether you believe that you are the hero or whether God is the hero.
Well, that's really convicting, Mark. I remember a time early on in my marriage where my husband and I were having some what another guest called intense fellowship. We were having a disagreement, and I remember my husband looking at me right in the middle of it and saying, "You do realize that I'm not Jesus, right? Like, I really need to know that you realize that." And I realized, yeah, my expectations were there. And sometimes we can have those expectations to someone else in our family or ourselves being the hero of our own story, like you talked about. I think that's really convicting to think about. And, you had told me, Mark, that you would ask what I think. And I think everything that you said was really helpful in thinking about that, your heart, mind, and soul, because they are all interconnected. God made us a body, mind, and soul. But I think that often when we're experiencing burnout, other people around us notice it before we name it and claim it. And, your kids kind of start to shrink away from you a little bit. They start to maybe hide in their room a little bit more. Maybe your staff hides in their church offices a little bit more. Like, ooh, that's kind of a little easily triggered there. Let's just kind of give that some space. And if they say something about it, then what I see is that the person who's being called out is like offended. How could you say that about me? You don't support me. Rather than really stopping and recognizing that. Because, Mark, I think all of us can imagine that. You've probably been in that situation where you're just kind of grumping around the kitchen or slamming things around. And somebody in your family says, "What are you angry about?" And you're like, "I'm not angry." And then if you stop and realize it, you're like, "I am angry." And you have described Sabbath as a leadership discipline. How do we accept accountability from other people as leaders of our family, leaders of our church, to see that, hey, we are burning out. And even more than that, how do we be proactive in seeking Sabbath before those friction points, those tension points start to hit?
Yeah. Well, creating boundaries is the obvious answer, and much easier for us to talk about than to do. But if we don't have someone holding us account for those boundaries, then they're just simply great ideas or whiteboard moments where like, maybe write an article about it, but they're just ideas until we verbalize them, until we formalize them somehow. And everyone would have a different way of applying that. But in my life, um, I have a team, a small team that helps me know when to say yes, or when to wait and maybe say yes later, or say no, this is not a fit. And the chairman of that committee is my wife.
I love it.
Co-chair. Yeah. So basically, my little team is Jesus and Janet, and that's my king and queen right there. And I run everything by them. Now I haven't always done that. And so when somebody says, "Are you busy on June 28th at 4:00?" Well, that's not enough information, or are you available? Are you preaching anywhere on this Sunday? Or can you write that? And so what I've learned to do is to not just stall, but to be more intentional about my yeses and my boundaries. And again, it's a discipleship opportunity to explain, well, let me get back to you on this. I want to talk to my team. And I'll tell them, Jesus and
Your
Janet,
king and queen.
I do have accountability. My king and queen. This is my first love and my second love. And these are my top two covenants. And nobody wants me to succeed more than they do. And they're also the ones that I have to put in my calendar. So I can talk about Jesus and Janet, but if they're not on my calendar, then again, there's another whiteboard idea or blog post. But so how I do that, and again, everyone's context is different. If you're a mother of preschoolers right now, don't tune us out, because I know you're going to have to do Sabbath differently. All right, we know that.
Yeah,
Don't feel guilty.
that's right.
All right, don't let somebody say, "Hey, you need to have a date every single week," and you've got 2-3 preschoolers. Okay, you do it once a month, and you are a rock star.
You're good.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, and so, but for me, I had this. My boundaries are pretty simple. I don't have breakfast meetings. My first love is Jesus. I start every day with him, and I don't need to rush past the throne of God every day. I don't do anybody any good if I haven't walked with him first. And then usually after work for me, my first conversation, a real conversation, uninterrupted by people or devices, is with Janet. She's not a morning person, so Jesus, the only one who wants to talk to me anyway in the morning, and then in the evening, she gets the best of my attention. And I learned that at 6:00, we usually eat at 6:00, whether we eat out or eat at home. Most time we eat at home, and that's my cutoff point. I'm not trying to change the world after 6 p.m. For one, I'm a morning person, so my melatonin kicks in fast, and I'm useless anyway. And so that starts the Sabbath cycle for me. I'm going to run hard from 6 to 6, but then after 6, man, I'm out.
I have more questions about this. Listen, the book is called Rest Well, Lead Well, Why Sabbath Matters to Your Ministry by Mark Dance. And I got more questions when we come back, and we'll talk more about how to lead a family that flourishes under rest. It's countercultural, but it's what we're called to do. We'll be right back.
When you hear this
This is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they are forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net. AFA Stream is a resource for life-changing instruction and information, a source of wholesome entertainment and relaxation, plus access to some of your favorite AFA shows. You can watch a lot of content for free, or you can become a Great Commission partner. Then you'll not only open the door to everything AFA Stream has to offer, you'll get benefits like a subscription to The Stand and some really nice exclusives. Why not get started today? It's easy. Visit stream.afa.net.
Hey everybody, Walker Wildman here. We just got done filming here at Wall Builders Library in Aledo, Texas with Stephen McDowell, Tim Barton, Rick Green, and myself. Episode 9 of AFA at Home, One Nation Under God, celebrating America's 250th anniversary. That's our theme. That's our title and subtitle for this video session. Coming out very soon for you. Stay tuned on July 4th, 2026, on America's 250th birthday. We're going to release this video. It's jam-packed full of American history, why we're here, why our founding fathers did what they did, why they fought and died for our nation. Stay tuned. Make sure to check us out at stream.afa.net. Follow all of AFA's major social media platforms, and make sure you share this with family and friends.
What if healthcare could be more than bills and bureaucracy? What if it could reflect faith, foster community, and offer spiritual support? At Redeem HealthShare Ministry, the mission goes beyond medical bills. It's about honoring Christ and embracing healthcare that aligns with Christian values. Redeem members share medical expenses through monthly contributions, supporting one another in a Christ-centered community. It's not insurance, it's believers helping believers through financial support and prayer. And Redeem HealthShare provides freedom for members to select the doctors, hospitals, and treatments that are right for them. No networks, no restrictions, just faith-driven care. From everyday checkups to unexpected medical emergencies, Redeem offers flexible programs and encouragement rooted in Scripture. Because your healthcare should reflect your faith, not compromise it. More at redeemhealthshare.org or call 1-844-REDEEM-0.
I would be perfect if it wasn't for the little ways I fall short every day of my life. I would be perfect if it wasn't for the million things that I never can seem to get right. But I got this peace inside, 'cause I know that every time I give you failures and you give me grace, all of my problems don't push you away. And somehow you love somebody like me. Don't know how you do it, but you do it perfectly. You do it perfectly.
Welcome back, friends. That is Perfectly by Micah Tyler. And in a world full of social media, I think we feel pressured to do everything perfectly, even rest well. And you see, there's actually rising marketing forces that are converging on the sleep field. You've got mattresses, you've got supplements, you've got sleep trackers, you've got all kinds of things that are looking at sleep. But really what we're talking about today is taking Sabbath, is the habit of Sabbath. I'm talking to Dr. Mark Dance about his new book, Rest Well, Lead Well, Why Sabbath Matters to Your Ministry. And in this world that awards busyness as a badge of honor, where we're all running at the speed of a smartphone, we feel guilty for any moment that we might not be doing anything. And then you fill the void with doom scrolling or some sort of electronic entertainment. We've got to be more intentional about resting. And Mark, right before the break, you were giving us some great advice about the king and queen of your life. That would be Jesus and Janet, which I will never forget, your wife, who have say into your schedule. And as you were talking, it made me think about the fact that, we are made body, mind, and soul, and we only have a finite amount of time and energy. Everybody has the same time in the day. Everybody has a finite amount of physical, mental, spiritual, emotional energy. And when you overcommit your time or your energy, somebody else in your circle is going to pay for that. Those things are often expensive emotionally or time-wise, they're expensive. And so that's a question that I've learned to ask myself is, okay, if I say yes to this, who's going to pay the cost of it? Is it going to cost my family something? Are they going to miss out on time with me because I'm going to need more time than I think or more emotional energy and I'll come home exhausted? And those boundaries are really important. You talked about boundaries and really you described the Sabbath as more, we talk about this elusive pursuit of work-life balance and all of that. Like, right? That's what everybody wants. We want the work-life balance. But you have suggested that a rhythm is more realistic. How do we take all of those things that we've talked about and really pursue a realistic, healthy rhythm of Sabbath?
Yeah, balance is a bit of a popular word, but it's
It's a
it's not
lie,
it's
I
not real.
think.
It's a lie.
It is.
It's a pipe
I
dream.
haven't found
Yeah.
it.
Well, the fact is, you'll feel even more guilty when you face an inevitable crisis, right?
Mhm.
When because you're going to at work or home, your parents, your kids, your spouse, somebody's going to need you in a certain time, and that's important to be present. Jesus went through those same sprints. That's why he was asleep in the boat during the storm, because he was tired. If you look at his schedule before, a few verses before that, his cousin was beheaded. He fed a bunch of people. It's like, they got so busy that they didn't even take time to eat. And we will have those, there's sprints. If your life's always a sprint, then that's not really a sprint anymore. It's a lifestyle. And so we can change rhythms in that, like, because the rhythm is a pattern that adjusts. And so when you have as a norm in your week, a time to stop, even if it doesn't happen at the same time every week, the fact is you've sewn it into your life, just like God's put it into the fabric of our DNA, and to work hard and to stop, work hard and to stop. He's also sewn it into the fabric of our day. We can't go without sleep. And, some people say, I only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Well, nobody that's been to medical school told them that, right? There's nobody with superhero DNA that only needs 4 or 5 hours of sleep. No, we all need 7, 8 hours of sleep. We all need rest. We all need food. We all need people in our lives. We all need Jesus. And so there's some universal things that we can build our life around and build a rhythm to where it's not where it's normal to stop. You mentioned something really important earlier that, embrace boredom. Sometimes you being bored, your kids being bored, there's nothing to do. They're going to have to be creative. It's like that's where a lot of creative ideas come from. It's where a lot of connection happens. And so part of what rhythm looks like in my life is that I have to disconnect before I can connect. And so I don't walk into the house on a phone call. I don't take messages. I don't return messages after 6 that aren't a real emergency. And by the way, church members are the worst at defining what a real emergency is,
You're not wrong.
And yeah, I was like, come on. One of the best ways that I create rhythm is on the nights, weekends, especially vacations. And this is pretty radical. I know it's hard to believe this, but I started practicing it some years ago, is that I will turn my phone on airplane mode when I'm not working. And pastors go into panic when they hear that, because someone, a donkey might end up in the ditch, an oxen in the, it's like, listen, if there's always a donkey in the ditch, you're the donkey, okay? But what I've told the people in my life is that if there is a real emergency, this is Janet's cell phone number, and Janet's cell phone's always on. So whether I'm out of town or it's on the night or a weekend or in the middle of the night, if there's a real emergency, call Janet's cell phone. Now, you're already thinking it. Naturally, they're going to think 2, 3, 4 times before they call Janet's cell phone to get me.
That's exactly
right?
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So all you're doing is just making sure, that, because it is, and it takes a little bit of courage and faith to turn your cell phone off. And whether it's your phone or tablet or whatever, there's so many ways to reach us right now. And we feel compelled to just get back to people right away. And that's just not normal. It's not natural. It's not how God wired us. It's not what he modeled in scripture and taught us. Sabbath is a clear cease and desist order that was originally enforced by the death penalty in Sinai Desert. This shows you how serious God is about it. It's still in the 10 Commandments, and yet it's more than just a command. It is also a gift, right? It is something that Isaiah calls 3 times. He calls it Sabbath a delight. So when people want the people in your life who want to connect with you, and the people that need something from you, you have to discern whether they're calling Dr. Peck or they're calling Jessica, right?
Yeah.
And whether this is a real emergency. Yeah, because then there's part of the rhythm is how many people am I giving to and how many people are pouring into me, and having some relevant, some balance there as well.
You're throwing some truth bombs here, Mark, and you speak but you speak with such confidence, and it's a little sad to me that that would be considered radical. It's like having healthy boundaries that we had. And actually, this is a great preview of the show that I'm going to do on Friday, where we're talking about tech tracking and tracking how many notifications are actually pulling you away and burning you out. But this comes from a real personal place for you, Mark, and I appreciate you sharing your own personal story, and that definitely has a way of changing you and giving you a different perspective to speak from that lived experience. Can you share a little bit about your own experience with burnout and how it made you so passionate about these boundaries and following the biblical mandate for Sabbath?
Yeah, happy to. Well, when I first started in ministry almost 40 years ago as a young pastor, my first year as a pastor, I was also married that year. I was taking seminary classes, including second year Greek. And so it was a very hard year. It was the first time, my first year in ministry, the first time I realized I didn't have a cape, I was just ignoring the Sabbath. I thought that was for people that were old or lazy. And then 20 years, but ministry was rewarding and fulfilling, and I got some rhythm. And until about 20 years ago, or between 15 and 20 years ago, I was in the middle of a relocation, pastoring this thriving church. The church was growing. We moved from 5-acre to 50-acre property, and we're going to keep both to do ministry. And but I completely ran out of gas. I was that overwhelmed guy. And also the driven guy who just thought, hey, I'm just gonna, for the kingdom. And I just had a little I overvalued my role in the advance of the gospel, I guess. So the warning signs came. The warning signs of that you mentioned, and that I've mentioned, the erosion in relationships, the people avoiding and me avoiding them, and no meltdowns or train wrecks, but I was different. Like, not for a few days or weeks, but for months, I was not the same person. Decisions that used to come natural were very hard. Sleeping was hard. Eating was hard. I'm 6'1". I weighed 167 pounds. I
Wow.
could not gain weight. I didn't know why. And I could still do, because pastors have an on button. I could still turn it on and smile and preach and just, but so I did something radical for a caregiver. I asked for help. I reached out to my family doctor and I said, something's different about me. I don't know what it is. And so he asked me a bunch of questions that your doctor would ask you, that a mental health professional would ask you, which, what are you thinking? How are you thinking? What are you eating, sleeping? All these things. I don't remember all the questions.
Body, mind, and soul.
And he just, yeah. And he knew me well because he was a member of my church and we'd been on a couple of mission trips together. And so, yeah. And so he said, this is very normal for a driven guy in your early 40s. And so he diagnosed me very casually as being clinically depressed. And so I said, well, I don't have time for that. But if you get anything else, I'm open to it, you know? And so anyway, within a week of that diagnosis, a licensed therapist that was new to our church that I didn't know very well, she set an appointment, came to my office, and she only had two questions. Do you know that you're clinically depressed? And are you taking anything for it? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, oh, good. I said, well, I just found out last week, you know. She said, "Did you take anything for it?" And I said, well, yeah, I picked something up Wednesday. I don't know if it works or not, but I said, hey, would you mind meeting my doctor? And you guys kind of become part of my dance team here. And and so they got together, and a couple of my leaders in my church became the advocates for me that helped me get healthy again. And I did. I listened to what they said. I went to that counselor, that therapist for 5 years until I moved to Nashville to start Lifeway Pastors. I met with her every month. I took that. I needed that medication for almost a year until the doctor said I didn't, because I'd burned through my serotonin. And I learned a lot about mental health and my own physical health and just self-care. But I'd stopping. In my case, I didn't inherit depression. I know that there's different kinds, you know, of depression, just like there's different kinds of cancer. So I'm not encouraging anybody to self-diagnose, but if people who care for you, I mean, if you'll ask for help, if people care, listen to the people that are called to and prepared to help you, because they're rooting for you. And so in my case, my burnout left untreated, devolved into a season of clinical depression that lasted probably 4 years. And I did get the old Mark back, which I think everybody was happy about that. But it wasn't overnight. It wasn't easy. And I had to reset my rhythm so that I started stopping again and taking care of myself better. And I continued pastoring there. We finished a relocation. And I'm now a member of the church I used to pastor. So
I love that. What a great way to end our time together, and such a challenge for people out there listening. Maybe this is your moment that you need to reach out for help and go to your primary healthcare provider. I say that all the time, or get a copy of Rest Well, Lead Well. Mark, thank you for your transparency and your grace and sharing hope with us. I pray the Lord will bless you and keep you. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.